What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the Star Toys Lightning with the DX9 Gewalt, both versions of a Masterpiece Blitzwing. So these figures came out quite a few years apart. This is from 2023, just recently, and this is from 2016. So a lot of years between them. And I just reviewed this guy, pretty cool, but this guy's kind of been the default Blitzwing for a while. Now, I don't have the KFC version here in front of us, so we're just going to be looking at these two guys. And as I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible, but of course there's subjectivity involved when you're looking at things like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these comparisons to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection. With that being said, let's get started, and we'll start off with accessories. So here are the accessories they both come with. You both have a gun, slightly different styling. The Star Toys went with a more cartoon look, where they just went with more sculpted detail. Both just plastic. Both come with a sword. Again, Star Toys went with a more cartoon look, where they went this translucent purple. And then they both come with a yelling face. So it's a straight tie for accessories. And next, let's quickly talk about gimmicks. There isn't much in the way of gimmicks, with the exception of the DX9. You can take the weapons and they will store and mount in the vehicle modes, whereas the Star Toys will not mount. So we're going to give gimmicks over to DX9. Next, we'll talk about the cartoon accuracy. In order to do that, we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. And this is one that's kind of obvious, not really a need to waste time. The Star Toys is going to nail the cartoon accuracy. DX9 went for a little bit more of a toyetic look. Also, it's kind of stylized. But while we're here, let's talk about the sculpt. I also think Star Toys did a lot better with the sculpt. It's a lot cleaner all throughout. The DX9 has a lot of stuff hanging off the legs just because of the way they designed it. They actually gave it two fins here for the jet mode. Same for the arms. There's kind of like kibble here and there. You got kibble here on the waist section. So I'm going to give sculpt also over to Star Toys. I think it's a much cleaner look overall. Next, we'll talk about the paint on these two. And when it comes to paint, both of them are pretty light on paint. Starting off with the Star Toys, the yellow, red, and white on the head is paint. The red you see here, the yellow here, the red here, and then a little bit of purple accents here is painted. Purple here on the shoulders, and then a little bit here on the edge of the fin, which you'll see more in the vehicle mode paint. And that's really it for paint. For DX9, you have, again, purple on the shoulders with a little bit of silver accent. Silver for the face, and a little bit of red here for the visor and the crest. Basically exactly the same. It doesn't have the yellow across the whole head, but it does have a little bit of red on the top of the helmet. Same things here. It's got red accents, yellow accents here, silver accents here instead of the purple. Silver accents here on the hip skirts. And then a very tiny little bit of silver down here on the ankles. But that's really it. I guess there's a little bit of red here, which you'll see more in the vehicle mode. But both of them are very, very light on paint. And they're painted in mostly the same area, so I'm going to give them a tie. Next, we'll talk about the build quality on these two. And both actually feel pretty good. They're pretty solid. Nothing really feels like it's going to break as you're transforming. But there are some fitment things with the DX9 that leaves it feeling a little bit cheaper. Just for example, the wings here, the heel spurs don't really lock in place. They kind of move around on you. These little pieces here, they don't really lock into place. They just kind of move around. So while it's not a breakage issue, it's more just a feeling of cheapness, or just, they didn't go far enough to get things to lock in place. So just by a hair, I'm going to give it to Star Toys. I think they just built a more solid figure in all three modes. It just feels very solid and like it was purposeful. Now let's talk about the articulation. In order to do that, we'll articulate each one individually so you can see how they work. Star Toys, the head is on a ball joint. It goes up to there, down to there, side to side, rotates all the way around. Shoulders go out to there. Forward and back on a ratchet. You have a rotation at the bicep, at a cut joint. Double jointed elbow gets you the full bend. Rotation at the wrist, in and out movement at the wrist, which I actually forgot to mention during the review, but it does move in and out. Individually articulated fingers at 2 pins, and then the thumb is on a ball joint and 2 pins as well. I do happen to like those fingers. Rotation at the waist. You do have an ab crunch here. If you lift up on this joint, you can get it pretty far down, and that works pretty nicely. You have a single hip skirt here on the front and on the side. Leg can go up to there, back to there, out to the side, on ratchet. Rotation at the thigh. Double jointed knee gets you the full bend. The ankles can tilt, and they can pivot forward and backward, and then the toe can tilt up and the heel can tilt up. You can also move the cannon back here. You can angle it if you want to, but that is it for Star Toys. For DX9, the head is also on a ball joint. You get a little bit up, a little bit down. I guess a little bit of side to side. It rotates around. Shoulders will rotate out to the side. They're a little bit hindered by this shoulder pad, so you got to kind of get that out of the way. If you open this up, you can't get the shoulder out further, so you can kind of fold this out to the side, and then it goes out to there. But then you have that ugly black thing on the outside, so it's kind of your choice. Rotates around on a ratchet this way as well. Rotation at the bicep. Double jointed elbow gets you full bend. Rotation at the wrist. It does also have an in and out movement at the wrist because it's on a ball joint. The fingers are not individually articulated. The 3 bottom fingers are together, and then the top finger is separate. So slightly less. The thumb is on a ball joint and I believe a single pin. Yeah, single pin. So slightly less articulation on those hands. Coming down to the waist, you have a rotation here on a ratchet. No ab crunch on this one. Hip skirts will move out to there. The leg go up to there, hindered by the sculpt of the thigh. Back to there. Out to the side, only up to there. Again, hindered by this. You have a rotation at the thigh. You do have a 90 double jointed knee, gets you well past 90 degrees, pretty much a full bend. There. You have it's not really ankle tilts. It's a toe tilt and a heel tilt. They tilt independently, and they'll go up and down, but it's not quite the same. And this was actually what I was mentioning earlier with build quality. It's not that it's built poorly, it's just that the balance is a little tougher because of the way they built these feet, the design of it. Sometimes it can lean backwards if you don't have it right, but there you go for articulation. I'm going to give it over to Star Toys. They do have a little bit extra articulation in the hands, and of course the ab crunch, which this guy doesn't have, so we'll give it to Star Toys. Next, let's talk about the transformation and engineering. When it comes to transformation, both of them are relatively straightforward and simple. Now, this guy didn't come with an instruction manual, so that made it a lot harder to figure out on my own, but once I figured it out, pretty fun, pretty simple and intuitive. This guy also not very difficult. Again, I never even opened the instructions for this guy. I just transformed it right out of the box. So both of them pretty cool, especially for a triple changer. Not horrible in terms of transformation. So I'm going to give them a tie. When it comes to engineering, I got to give it to Star Toy. They really are able to engineer such a clean looking alt mode and robot mode, and that's very impressive. The DX9 alt mode, especially the tank, not very clean, and the jet mode, while it looks closer to the actual vehicle, I think it's not as clean. So I'm going to give engineering over to Star Toys. They really just have very good engineering. Now let's take a look at the alt modes, and we'll start off with the jet mode here. And you can see right away that Star Toy went for a cartoon accurate look, whereas DX9 went for a more vehicle accurate look. And it's actually a real vehicle. It's a MiG-25. I think it's a Soviet era jet. And they did a pretty good job on reproducing that jet. You can tell by the 4 tail wings on the back where the Star Toy just has the 2, which is cartoon accurate. I do like that they put the paint on the tail fin and they really went that extra mile to make it accurate. But the proportions and the overall look of the jet, I think, look more realistic and better on DX9. So we're going to give jet mode over to DX9. Then taking a look at the tank mode, you can see that this is the one mode for DX9 where it just didn't work out, right? They just have a lot of kibble. The wings are kind of hanging out on the back. You've got the cockpit and the head hanging out underneath. Overall, the colors aren't really even that close to the Blitzwing colors. Now, the tank, if it looked great, I think I would kind of surpass the colors, but because the Star Toy tank looks better and has cartoon accurate colors, I'm going to give tank mode over to Star Toy. Next, we'll talk about the cost on these two, and this cost seems to vary widely between stores on these two. I'm not really sure why it's so different for this particular figure, but since Ages 3 and Up, which is the store I usually use for the cost number here, doesn't have this guy listed, I went with the Chosen Prime's website, and they have this guy listed at $170, this guy listed at $140. I did check a few other places just to see, and almost all of them had the same thing. Basically, this guy $10 to $20 to $30 cheaper than this guy, especially since he just got a reissue. So the reissue is definitely cheaper. So we're going to have cost over to DX9. And the final factor in the comparison is the members' choice category, where I ask my members which one they prefer, just based on their own preference and no other factor. And you can see here that Star Toy is going to easily win the members' choice category, 84 to 16%. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score, and Star Toy is going to win this by a landslide. Not too surprised. I figured they would. Now, to be fair, this is a 7-year-old figure from 2016. So technology and the game of third party has just changed so much in 7 years. But I'd give them credit for having such a good figure that's, really stood the test of time all this time. But it is time for me personally to replace this guy. He is really good, but for me, it's going to be this guy. Now, if you like the more bulky, this guy's kind of more intimidating. He's just like bigger and beefier, bulkier, more intimidating. Then I think you might still want DX9. But if you prefer the more cartoon accurate and just overall better built figure, then I think this is the one for you. Now, again, I'm not factoring in the KFC version here, but we do have the Fans Toys version, which has been teased and we've seen renders, but it's never come out. So if that does come out, that might change things. But right now, in my opinion, this is the best Blitzwing on the market, period. So that's it for this comparison. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.